Let's dive into a little debate, shall we? Here's a headline from the Crypto Basic. RLUSD is the Trojan horse that could break XRP. Bold claim, right? But is it true? Spoiler alert, I couldn't disagree more if I tried. This perspective comes from an XRP community member, and I'll just say up front, I think they've got it all wrong. A Trojan horse to destroy XRP? Not a chance. In fact, RLUSD has the potential to be a massive win for XRP. Sure, there are plenty of doomsday theories floating around, but let's break this down piece by piece. After reading, I want to hear your take. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let me start with a quick disclaimer. I'm not a financial expert, far from it. Nothing I say or write should ever be taken as financial advice. Seriously, don't base any buying or selling decisions on my content. I'm just a crypto enthusiast making YouTube videos for fun. Now, instead of boring you with a long article, let's dive straight into the source material. I'll show you exactly what was written so you have the full picture. I'll break it all down for you. No fluff, just the facts. And just to be clear, this isn't about throwing shade at anyone. I love a good, thoughtful discussion. That said, I'm going to be real and share my unfiltered thoughts, which means I'll be direct, maybe even blunt. I don't mean to sound harsh here, but I have to be upfront. This analysis is way off the mark. Honestly, it's not just wrong, it's pretty poorly thought out. That's my genuine take on it. The piece comes from someone called Stellar Expert, and here's what they had to say. RLUSD, the Trojan horse that could break XRP. A bit over dramatic, don't you think? Stellar Expert continues. The RLUSD launch isn't just a stablecoin drop. Ripple's new stablecoin RLUSD is set to go multi-chain, launching on Ethereum and the XRP ledger. Just to clarify, it's already live at this point. But back to the claim. Sounds bullish, maybe not for XRP holders. Here's why RLUSD might be the biggest existential risk to XRP. Biggest existential risk? Really, let's discuss. Now let's take a step back. This feels a bit over the top, doesn't it? Are we really saying that Ripple launching RLUSD, their stablecoin with huge potential for adoption on the XRP ledger, is somehow the biggest risk to XRP ever? Really? So what's the alternative here? Ripple should have just skipped making the stablecoin altogether. No stablecoins on the XRP ledger at all. That's what we're supposed to believe. Quite a dramatic way to kick off a thread, but it gets better. He goes on to say Ripple is copying Tether's playbook. Spoiler alert, no, they're not. Ripple stands out in so many ways, especially when it comes to regulation. It's always positioned itself as the adult in the room, taking a measured and transparent approach. Tether, on the other hand, well, let's just say transparency isn't exactly its strong suit. They've never really proven that Tether is fully backed. They don't explain it. They don't show it. That's a far cry from Ripple's approach, don't you think? The differences couldn't be clearer. But here's the twist. Some say Ripple is following Tether's playbook. Remember USDT? It started on Bitcoin's Omni layer, but guess where it lives now? Tron. Interesting, right? There's a lot to unpack here. Market makers prioritize speed and low cost. They don't care which chain they use, but hold on a second. Let's break this down. You're saying there's a risk to XRP because RLUSD could be adopted on other chains instead of the XRP ledger. Why? Because market makers supposedly only care about speed and cost. Do you not see the flaw in that argument? The XRP ledger is lightning fast and so cheap, it's practically free. So if speed and cost are the priority, isn't XRP ledger already the obvious choice? It's like arguing against yourself without even realizing it. Each transaction costs mere fractions of a penny. Not exactly a strong starting point. Then comes the big question. What happens if RLUSD thrives outside the XRP ledger? Ripple claims RLUSD will operate across multiple chains, but let's be real. DeFi dominates Ethereum, speed kings like Solana and Tron hold the crown, and liquidity always finds its footing elsewhere. What's left for XRP? Here's the kicker. This so-called stellar expert might as well say, what if the XRP ledger can't hold its own in a fair fight? That's the underlying worry here, the heart of his argument. It all boils down to one thing. Is XRP's place in the game really secure? What if the XRP ledger isn't strong enough to draw in the kind of activity it needs? What if RLUSD ends up thriving on a different chain, Ethereum or some other platform? That's the actual concern here. But come on, think about it for a second. Doesn't that sound a bit ridiculous? Let's break it down. Sure, I'll admit it's technically possible. Fast forward 1 to maybe even 5 years, and yeah, the majority of RLUSD transactions could happen on another chain instead of the XRP ledger. But let's not ignore the obvious. The XRP ledger is competing on a level playing field with its blazing speed and rock bottom transaction costs. It's tailor-made for this kind of competition. So what's the real issue here? If it doesn't win, it doesn't win. That's just how innovation works. The stablecoin ecosystem is going to flourish with or without RLUSD. But the fact that RLUSD exists and there's a strong push for its success on the XRP ledger, that's something to celebrate. This is an existential threat, he says. The idea that RLUSD could coexist on a different chain sparks debate. Should they have avoided creating it entirely just to eliminate the risk? That logic is flawed. Of course they should create it. There's a real chance it could be hugely beneficial for the XRP ledger. If another chain ends up dominating RLUSD transactions, then so be it. That's just how crypto works. Survival of the fittest. If another chain wins, so be it. But I genuinely believe the XRP ledger is built for this, perfectly designed and ready to thrive. I truly believe that the XRP ledger has a strong chance of becoming a key player in the stablecoin space. It just makes sense. But here's the thing, even if that doesn't happen, XRP remains incredibly useful. Its long-term success doesn't depend solely on stablecoin adoption. And that's an important point to remember. Right now, we're looking at an exciting opportunity. Ripple has introduced RLUSD, and the way it's designed directly benefits XRP holders. Why? Because XRP is essential for RLUSD to operate on the XRP ledger. Every single RLUSD transaction on the ledger relies on XRP. It's baked right into the system. So this is a big moment full of potential. But if this opportunity shifts elsewhere and stablecoin activity thrives on other chains instead, that's just survival of the fittest at play. Either way, XRP's utility isn't going anywhere, and that's a win in my book. XRP has already carved out its place in the market, and the tokenization of real-world assets is picking up steam. Take a moment to think about Dubai. Remember the news about them tokenizing land on the XRP ledger? I've covered it extensively. This process requires XRP, by the way. So are they going to hit pause just because there's no stablecoin? Not a chance. If anything, it fuels demand for stablecoin. Why? Because the more real world assets get tokenized, the greater the need for stablecoin activity. In fact, this momentum only strengthens the case for XRP. The XRP ledger is already leading the charge in tokenizing real world assets. To me, it's a non-issue. The system is thriving, and this just adds more fuel to the fire. He raises more concerns, claiming RLUSD could take over as the new utility layer, leaving XRP in the dust. According to him, Ripple is channeling its real focus into RLUSD. Why? It's programmable, reliable, and seamlessly interoperable. This stablecoin, he argues, might become the fuel powering Ripple's enterprise ecosystem. So here's the kicker. If RLUSD works across chains, does XRP still have a role? Honestly, he sounds more like an XRP skeptic at this point. And let's be real, this XRP is useless narrative is nothing new. It's the kind of thing you hear from folks who suffer from what I call XRP derangement syndrome. I've been around since late 2017, and I kid you not, this argument predates my entry into the space. Even back in 2017, 2018, and 2019, the same claims were making the rounds. Why bother with XRP when stablecoins can do the job? They'd say, it's an old tune, but it keeps playing. Here's a fun mental exercise I like to throw out there. It usually leaves people scratching their heads. Imagine someone argues, if stablecoins can act as a bridge currency, then there's no need for XRP. All right, fair enough. But here's where I flip the script. Oh, so by that logic, if XRP can serve as a bridge currency, why do we need stablecoins? See what I did there? The point is, if two different types of cryptocurrencies, say a stablecoin and a utility token like XRP, can both perform the exact same function, why would one suddenly make the other obsolete? It's not a zero-sum game. Both can coexist and bring value to the same use case. But skeptics rarely think it through. They just assume competition automatically cancels out one side, like saying, oh, Facebook exists, so why would we need any other social platform? It's not that simple, is it? You don't need that anymore. You don't need Facebook anymore. See how ridiculous that argument sounds? Yet that's exactly what some people are saying, claiming that just because there's competition, you automatically lose. It's nonsense. It's a lazy, weak argument that I've seen people use over and over again. Now, let's talk about RLUSDs and their role as the gas for Ripple's enterprise ecosystem. The reality is Ripple relies heavily on XRP for the majority of its transactions in Ripple payments. Almost every time a bridge currency is in play, it's XRP doing the heavy lifting. That's just the way it is. The only exception is during a corridor touch in the US, and that's purely for legal reasons. But don't worry, That's set to change soon. I've covered it on the channel plenty of times already, so no need to dive into it again here. That's really the only reason. Even if RLUSD were used exclusively as a bridge currency instead of XRP, it would still operate on the XRP ledger, keeping everything connected. To make that work, you still need XRP. It's essential. It powers the entire process. And guess what? That just boosts XRP's utility even more. How are you not seeing this? It's right there, plain as day, so obvious. You ask, why do we even need XRP? Seriously, even if Ripple stopped using XRP as a bridge currency, would that make it useless? Not even close. That argument doesn't hold water. Think about it. Real world assets are already being tokenized on the XRP ledger. Look at Dubai money market funds, tokenized. US treasuries, also tokenized, all on the XRP ledger, and all within the last year. That requires XRP. So what are you even talking about? Oh, and by the way, you can literally use XRP as money and people are already doing it. That argument just doesn't hold up. Plus, let's not forget, XRP is actively being used as a bridge currency, yet the claim continues, XRP risks becoming redundant. The idea is that XRP was meant to be the ultimate universal bridge currency, but RLUSD, especially on Ethereum, can now handle Forex payments and settlements. If banks adopt RLUSD, XRP supposedly loses its purpose. Really, that logic doesn't add up. If Ripple's use of XRP fails, does that automatically make XRP useless? That's just not how it works. It's factually wrong, as I've already explained, and there's no need to rehash it. Ripple software is designed to work with either XRP or stablecoins. It's not an either/or situation. So no, XRP isn't losing its role. That line of thinking, it just doesn't make sense. They're clearly integrating RLUSD now, and they're doing it right on the XRP ledger. So like it or not, XRP is part of the equation. What are we even debating here? It just doesn't add up. This isn't exactly a well thought out analysis. That's what I'm getting at. Or maybe it's thoughtful, but still way off track. Actually, thoughtful isn't the right word. It's clear this guy put some serious time into it, but the conclusions, totally out there. Credit where it's due though. Seems like he really tried. No shade intended. I'm just dissecting the reasoning here and explaining why it doesn't hold water. There's no need to worry about this stuff. But then he throws in, just like Tron was greater than Omni, will Ethereum be greater than XRPL? History rhymes. USDT left its original chain, and if RLUSD gains momentum on Ethereum or Solana, XRP could be left in the dust. As for XRP, some fear it might fade into obscurity as just another legacy token in Ripple's ecosystem. But hold on. If you truly believe XRP has just one use case tied to Ripple, you're missing the bigger picture. And if you know that isn't true, why even entertain the idea of a threat? XRP getting sidelined? Seriously? The truth is, the XRP ledger holds a massive home field advantage. Every push for adoption is geared toward its success on the XRP ledger, a platform perfectly crafted for this kind of application. That's exactly why I see it making so much more sense to see wild success here. Of course, I'll admit nothing's ever guaranteed. In a worst case scenario, adoption could shift heavily to another chain, but honestly, I find that highly unlikely. Here's why. As long as XRP stays useful, especially for tokenizing assets, there will always be a need for quick on-chain access to stablecoins. And the key word here is on-chain, not on some other chain. That's where RLUSD comes in. Its demand is tied directly to this utility, making it a perfect fit for the XRP ledger. So I genuinely believe there's a strong chance this takes off on XRP. Not a sure thing, but highly likely. That's fantastic news for XRP's ecosystem. But don't get distracted by shiny logos. Ripple's building some incredible tools, no doubt, but not every Ripple innovation automatically spells a win for XRP. RLUSD is first and foremost a stable coin. It doesn't need XRP to succeed. Fair enough. But hold on. If it's operating on the XRP ledger, then yes, it does need XRP to thrive. Outside of that, sure, it's true. And if everything eventually moves off chain, well, no harm done. As XRP holders, we're not losing anything by Ripple taking this shot. Now, say that happens. We end up in a world where XRP is thriving across multiple use cases, but users decide an on-chain stablecoin isn't worth it. If that's the outcome, then so be it. Survival of the fittest, right? If XRP ledger users don't find value in a stablecoin they can seamlessly hop into, then okay. That said, I really believe they will find it useful. It makes sense. But hey, if they don't, they don't. Life moves on, and guess what? XRP has already won. Yes, folks, it's a done deal. No need to stress. Now, I'm not going to dive into all the nitty gritty here, but let's make this clear. David Schwartz gets it too. Remember this headline from December? Ripple CTO reveals how RLUSD will benefit XRP and XRPL developers. That says it all. I've covered this before on my channel, so I won't retread old ground, but come on, it's painfully obvious. RLUSD existing is a massive win for XRP. It's not just good, it's game changing. This is about driving more traffic, more momentum for XRP. And even if hypothetically it didn't work out, so what? At least we tried. You never lose for trying. And then it branches out somewhere else. Stablecoins will exist on other chains no matter what. So why not create one that gains real traction on the XRP ledger? What's the harm in trying? Dismissing the idea just because, well, reasons? That logic makes zero sense. Anyway, those are my 2 cents. Now, since this is the internet, feel free to shout at me in the comments and tell me how wrong I am. Spoiler, I'm not. I'm awesome and you know it. That's my take. Now let's hear yours. Oh, and just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't buy or sell anything based on what I say here. Seriously, that would be a terrible idea.